yourself, and this is why. Before an important ice skating competition, a girl named Enora Petrova decided to Google herself out of curiosity to see what other people see when they look her up. When she did so, she discovered a Wikipedia page dedicated to her and her successful career as an ice skater, and to her surprise, the page indicated that she would win the competition the following day. The next day came and went, and she did in fact win the ice skating competition, and the Wikipedia page just continued to prove her success time and time again. But with a new competition just months away, she decided to try something new. She tried editing the Wikipedia page herself to see if she could control the outcome. And that's when her nightmare began. Not only was she blocked from editing the page, but this time it was modified to say some pretty nasty things about her. Months later, she checked the page again, and this time it was updated with this horrible prediction that both of her parents would die in a terrible accident. And sure enough, days later, she's notified that her parents are dead. She then suffers an emotional breakdown that she's hospitalized for. After this, and while trying to get her life back on track, she decides to check the page one last time. On it, a death date was listed next to her name. And just like all of the others, this prediction was proven correct when Enora's lifeless body was discovered in her apartment.
Shocking true story about the real-life human leopard. This man's name is Tom Leopard, and he is best known as being the most tattooed man in the entire world. After serving in the military for 28 years, he decided that he was going to spend $5,000 to tattoo his entire body. Not only was he the most tattooed man, but as he got older, he was the most tattooed senior citizen in the world. Click the link in my bio to download Celebrity Lookalike and find out who your celebrity...
Terrifying Games You Shouldn't Play, Part 7. The Talking to Death Game. If you play this game correctly, you will live a long and prosperous life. But be warned, if you lose the game, the consequences could be extreme. In order to play this game, you will need a graveyard, 2 candles, a red rose, and an outfit that you would wear to a funeral, preferably all black. Once you have acquired all of these items, wait until night falls, get dressed in the funeral outfit, and enter the graveyard. Next, you'll need to locate the grave of a stranger who passed away sometime during your lifetime. You'll need to light the candles, lay the rose down at the foot of the grave, and begin to cry out loudly about how much you miss that person and how they were taken too soon. If your performance is convincing, then after a while you will feel the presence of the Grim Reaper behind you. Do not turn around and do not stop crying until he speaks. For the next hour, the Grim Reaper will ask you questions about the person buried in that grave, trying to trick you into admitting that you don't actually know them. You can lie about your answers, but you have to make sure that they're convincing ones. If the Grim Reaper believes at the end of the hour that you truly did know that person, he will take pity on you and grant you a long and prosperous life. But if he's unconvinced, he will take your life for wasting his time. Comment whether or not
Here's some fun facts you may have not wanted to know. But after this video, you'll know. So if you've heard somebody say honey never goes bad, it doesn't. Because there's not enough water in the honey for microorganisms to live on. So that honey you may have thrown away because it's been sitting in your cabinet for, 3 years? It was good. On to the next, ants. Go to war. Similar to humans, and they actually have some crazy strategies. For example, they'll put the weak ones in the front to protect the strong ones in the back. This one is crazy. These conjoined twin sisters actually share a brain. But not only that, they can hear each other's thoughts, and they can see out of each other's eyes. I've seen this one before, and it's a no for me. I have stage fright. So this is called a public semi-transparent toilet. You cannot see in, but you can see out. No. On to the next. Sunflowers can clean up radioactive waste. Sunflowers are good at eating up pollutants, especially radioactive metal contaminants, and they store all the waste in their stems. In the Antarctic, there are no spiders. That is all. So when Ashton Kutcher was 13 years old, he tried to commit suicide by jumping off a hospital balcony, all because he wanted to save his brother and donate his heart. For all my duck-feeding people, don't feed them bread. It fills up their stomach and they end up getting no nutrients from the bread anyways. And the bread also causes malnourishment. So when lions get injured, they can have mane loss. So when a lion sees a male with a long mane, they avoid fighting with him because they think he is stronger at combat. That's all, folks.
I work for John Gotti.
A guy dressed up as Elmo has been ranting in Central Park, yelling anti-Semitic slurs.
Jews will harass you.
He railed against Hindus.
You say you Hindu to him.
Elmo needs his mouth washed out with soap.
Filthy, stinking. Filthy, stinking.
That is the scariest Elmo I've ever seen in my life.
The man in the Elmo costume seen in those videos was deported from the country of Cambodia in 1999 for running a pornographic website called Welcome to Rape Camp. This is Adam Sandler, the man in the suit. Yes, his name is actually legally Adam Sandler, and for years now he's been seen all across the country from New York to LA. And what Adam frequently does is he shows up in public places, frequently dressed as characters from the Sesame Street franchise like Elmo or the Cookie Monster, and he harasses, he threatens people, he says terrible things to them. But like I said at the beginning of this video, Adam has an extremely checkered and deeply disturbing past. In 1999, he was deported from Cambodia for running that website called Welcome to Rape Camp, and basically people could pay to see disturbing things done to what he called, quote, Asian sex slaves, end quote, on his website. And according to reports, things got violent, and a lot of the footage that was posted and hosted on his website was deeply disturbing. Adam, though, was eventually arrested by Cambodian authorities and deported back to America. And if there were ever anyone that I think needs a hard drive check, it would definitely be this guy. Because not only has he threatened to rip people's throats out, that happened to a San Francisco shopkeeper, but if you run a website called Welcome to Rape Camp, I just don't think you should be out in public dressed as a children's figure, or I don't know what you would call him, a beloved character from a children's show, talking to anybody and everybody who might be out on the street that day, including, men, women, and children. If you want to hear more true crime stories, check out the podcast Murder in America that I co-host with my wife Courtney. It's available now on all streaming platforms.
Shocking true story about the real-life human tiger. This man's name is Dennis Avner, and he is known for his extensive body modifications to make himself look like a cat. At the age of 23, he started his transformation by getting his very first tiger stripe tattoo. He even had surgery to give himself a feline cleft lip, tiger teeth, and elongated ears. Certified doctors cannot alter a body this way, so he has to do all of this with no anesthetic. Click the link in bio for the funnest cat game out now.
Mermaid bears are a concept I keep forgetting are a real thing. And that's not a joke. If grizzly bears had ocean sirens, they'd be this right here. Now there's a lot of ways that can make you afraid of this thing, like the fact that they're way bigger than you think, like 12 feet, 1,200 pounds. I could mention what they do to penguins, sharks, other seals, one time a whale, or I could tell you about the one time a person got murked by one. RIP Kirsty, you did not deserve any of that. But instead, I'm gonna tell you a different story, because even after all these years, I still don't have answers. In 2006, photographer Paul Nicklin took a trip to Antarctica to find one of the most intimidating predators in the water. Which wasn't hard, because leopard seals are not like other predators. They're weird. Most predators are afraid of people. Bears avoid our voices, and a study showed that even the top predators in Africa hightail it whenever they hear human. And sharks barely acknowledge you, but a leopard seal will swim directly in your face and stare into your soul, and probably follow you around after. So when Paul found a seal, or I guess the seal found him, he ignored the pleas of his ancestors and got into the water with mammal mosasaur. Bless your heart, Paul, because a massive female sea leopard swam directly at him, and right when he was sure he was getting mauled, she just stopped and studied him. It's almost like Paul's lack of fear confused her, and the seal looked him over out of curiosity. She even studied her reflection in his camera. Then she swam away, and Paul thought it was over. Until she came back with a live penguin, which she let go in front of Paul. And when Paul obviously didn't accept, she got another penguin. Then another. For the next 4 days, every time Paul entered the water, the leopard seal would be right there to greet him and attempt to feed him. I think she low-key got frustrated because she started bringing increasingly lower HP penguins. At one point, he had 5 past tense penguins floating around his head. Actually high-key, because leopard seals often blow bubbles when they're mad, and when he didn't eat the penguin, she basically water-sighed at him. Can we appreciate just how weird that is? Like, the only other time I've heard of a wild, not a pet, I'm not talking about your cat, but a wild animal straight up trying to feed a person, it was orcas. Best guess is she thought he was a seal with a severe skill issue, but that's still wild. Imagine a polar bear pulling up with DoorDash. You love to see it, unless you're a penguin.
Here's what would happen if you spent 30 seconds on the moon without a spacesuit. As soon as you are on the moon, you will have no time to admire the view because there is no air to breathe. However, you will not die instantly. You have about 15 seconds before you pass out. Also, because the moon has no atmosphere, the pressure is super low, causing you to blow up and expand like a blowfish. And while this is happening, do not try to hold your breath because your lungs will burst. Also, because of the moon's conditions, any water in open area will boil. That includes your eyes, skin, and also the saliva boiling off your tongue. If you visit the moon during the day, temperatures reach 260 degrees Fahrenheit. And at night, temperatures drop to as low as negative 280 degrees Fahrenheit. And lastly, do not inhale any moon dust because it will kill you.
Insane Facts About Celebrities, Episode 8, Elon Musk. He was born June 28, 1971, in Pretoria, South Africa. When he was in college, he started his own nightclub outside of his house, just to pay rent. Instead of partying, he'd lock himself in his room and play video games. Elon don't trust these hoes. He invested $100 million into SpaceX, one of the largest private producers of rocket motors. Unfortunately, his biggest idol, Neil Armstrong, didn't support his company and even criticized him for it. And when Elon found out the bad news, he nearly shed a tear. What's your problem, Neil? Elon has 7 children, none of which that go to a regular school. He said the schools aren't teaching his kids what they need to know. So he said fuck it and built them their own school.
This is a crazy true story about the real-life lizard man. This man's name is Eric Sprague and he is best known as the human lizard. He has body modifications such as tattoos, sharpened teeth, and even a split tongue. He went from having absolutely no tattoos on his body to being tattooed over 700 hours. He has spent over $300,000 to look like a lizard and could not be happier.
Crazy Facts About Celebrities, Episode 7, Eazy-E. He was born September 7th, 1964 in Compton, California. When he was just 12 years old, he messed around and lost his V-card. The very next year, he had his debut on the streets and started selling drugs. Most drug dealers from Compton came from a broken family, but not him. His dad was a postal worker and his mom was a school administrator, but he was making so much money selling drugs that when he decided to drop out, his parents fully supported him. By the time he was 22 years old, he had an estimated net worth of $250,000. But he wasn't just hustling in the streets, he was also hustling in the sheets. He fathered 7 children with 6 different women and paid each child $50,000 every single month. Who knew he was such a giver? When he passed away in 1995 after contracting AIDS, they buried him in a golden casket. And instead of a suit, he was wearing jeans and a flannel and a Compton hat. Gotta represent.
BBC iPlayer have just added a brand new series of one of the best and most fascinating, in my opinion, true crime documentary series ever. Click save on this video if you feel like you might need to come back to it, and let's talk about it. Reported Missing Season 5, like I said, is brand new to the BBC iPlayer and it has 4 episodes. In this true crime documentary series, we follow police from the very first phone call that a person is reported missing. We follow them every single step of the way and we even see the point of view of the people, the missing person's loved ones, so the family members, their friends, their partners, and as I say, we go with them every step of the way to find out exactly what has happened to these people who have been reported missing. Some of the episodes in this series are absolutely heartbreaking and harrowing, but however, it is a fascinating and very interesting documentary to see the intricacies and the lengths that the police and the family members go to try and find out what has happened to these people who have been reported missing. If you haven't seen any of the series of reported missing, like I said, there are 5 seasons available and I think there are 2, 3 or even 4 episodes per season, but like I said, it's absolutely fascinating and it is definitely recommended. So if you would like to watch it yourself, if you've already seen seasons 1 to 4 and you want to watch season 5, or if you haven't seen any of it and you'd like to watch all of it, it is all available to watch right now over on the BBC iPlayer. Don't forget to save this video if you feel like you might need to come back to it for any reason, and as always, if you would like to see more TV and true crime updates from me, then click the follow button.
Did you know a serial killer once manipulated an entire university psychology department from his prison cell? In 1973, Edmund Kemper had just been sentenced for murdering 10 people, including his own mother. But instead of staying quiet, he volunteered for psychological studies at UC Santa Cruz. The researchers thought they had found the perfect subject to understand criminal minds. What they didn't know was that Kemper was playing them from the start. He fed them false information about his mental state, coached other inmates to lie during interviews, and turned their own studies against them. The recordings reveal how he effortlessly manipulated trained psychologists, making them believe whatever he wanted. He enjoyed showing off his intelligence, treating the sessions like a game he always won. The final manipulation was his masterpiece. He convinced researchers to recommend his parole. During sessions, he described detailed plans for future murders, disguising them as hypothetical scenarios. When the deception was discovered, years of research had to be thrown out. Kemper remained locked away but had proven that even from behind bars, some minds are too dangerous to study.
Facts that will mess with your perception of time. The cowboy era and the Victorian era took place at the same time. Mammoths were still roaming the earth when the Great Pyramids were getting built. Machu Picchu and the Sistine Chapel were built just 33 years apart. Cleopatra was closer to the invention of the iPhone than she was to the pyramids' construction. Abraham Lincoln and the samurai era were at the same time. London was founded 1100 years before Genghis Khan.
Fun fact, we've all said it before.
Better when I'm drunk.
When the pool balls just drift into the pockets and the darts find the board effortlessly. Flow state. And that's why alcohol is considered a performance-enhancing drug in the sports of archery and shooting. Getting drunk obviously won't help anyone win any kind of competition, but with the correct dosage, alcohol can help athletes block out the noise, reducing stress and calming their nerves, allowing them to hold their weapons steadier, and it also stops their thinking brain from interfering with their muscle memory, helping them commit to the shot rather than overthinking it and waiting for the perfect moment, allowing the athlete to shoot more naturally as they would in a low-stakes environment outside.
Animals in Costa Rica that'll change your brain chemistry, pura vida. A kindergartner's caricature was brought to life and it's called a bush dog. They're so short they need a handstand to pee. Their closest relative is that, and in packs, they can take down a tapir. That's a tapir, basically a boneless rhino, also called the gardeners of the forest because they help spread seeds for it. They can also scratch their backs with their manhood and stand as a tripod. The agouti is another seed disperser, and they're somewhere between an economy capybara and a guinea pig. I was flown out to Costa Rica by Ted Countdown, that's TED, so just know that's the first animal you're gonna see. Same with the coati, which is not a moonwalking dinosaur, but a raccoon cousin that'll steal your heart along with anything else not nailed down. But what you won't see is a jaguarundi. Unless you're lucky, this unidentified feral otter is actually a cat, and the rich coast has plenty of that, including the cats that look like different stages of the same Pokemon. Did you know ocelots have these weird relationships with opossums where they seem like they hang out on the low, and science isn't sure why? Now the chances you see a jaguar on the beach are low, but folks just couldn't let it be zero. Thanks to conservation and human persuasion, America's biggest cat has made a comeback, and there's one animal that's real happy about that. Costa Rica's also home base to over 500,000 sea turtles, and the rise of big cats means less of the animals that would eat their eggs. Never mind that jaguars eat turtles, but it's actually the jaguars' leftovers breaking down and releasing nutrients like nitrogen that keeps the forest healthy. Everyone has a part to play, and that's on Ted. It's not just a turtle tourist spot. The mass mobile array migration runs past the rich coast. If you live long enough to see it, you're luckier than most. Now, one bird won't make your trip, but two can. But don't be fooled, they want you to think they're a pair, but I see through them. That's a rebranded woodpecker on steroids. Now you know it's real when you have squawking skittles flying above your head, and it's the first time I've seen an animal glow red. But you've seen macaws before. Let me know when you clock a resplendent quetzal. Definitely a life-altering bird to see, and every bird watcher's wet dream. Of course, a country touched by God has a Jesus lizard. The basilisk got its name because when times get tough, this lizard turns water into a runway. I can't explain why leafcutter ants gave me so much dopamine, but finding a whole trail of them meant something to me. Ants learning how to farm before us is really crazy. Also, that's the homie Maya. Say hi, Maya. We also found a giant red-winged grasshopper. I don't care what y'all say, I think he's cute. But easily, the weirdest thing we found was right here. I didn't know what a planthopper nymph was, and now I can't get enough of them. Also, cookie for anyone who can tell me what the tail's for. Of course they have monkeys, you don't even have to ask, and by far the cutest. Squirrel monkeys make me want to work on myself as a person. I want to be better for them. But if I had to pick one favorite, one day we're gonna find a cure to cancer, and it's gonna be in a sloth. Studies say the algae ecosystem in the fur of the Costa Rican sloth contains antibiotics that we might be able to use to fight disease. And I was already sold on sloths. Ted brought us here to discuss climate change and conservation, but the main thing I learned is that Costa Rica is not real. That is someone's garden. Did you know Costa Rica holds 6% of the world's biodiversity, but only 0.3% of the real estate? Costa Rica's proof that if you're good to nature, she'll give it right back, and the ticos and ticas of Costa Rica love their nature. May we all learn to live a little more like Costa Ricans, and may you have the luck to see this for yourself. Pura vida, and the more you know.
This is why you should never swallow your gum. Samantha Jenkins was a 19-year-old girl who would chew more than 14 pieces of gum a day and would not always spit it out. One day, she was rushed to the hospital after falling very ill. Her mother made a discovery that she had hundreds of gum wrappers all over the floor in her room. After doctors opened her up, they found several large lumps of gum inside her stomach. She died because mineral levels in her body fell fatally low, and doctors believe that the gum
Mackenzie Shrilla's ex-girlfriend from prison is speaking out about her relationship with Mackenzie and how she was threatened by her once the relationship ended. So Cheyenne Topping met Mackenzie Shrilla shortly after Mackenzie was transferred to the Ohio Reformatory for Women to begin serving her sentence after she was convicted. Cheyenne recalled meeting Mackenzie on the outdoor track saying, quote, "I walked up to her and said, 'You look good.' The two quickly grew close and began dating, and Cheyenne said, quote, "When it started off, we were good. We were just walking the track. She was smiling because in prison, 2 weeks in prison feels like 2 months. All you're doing is seeing the same people every single day, 24 hours a day." But Cheyenne said that by the second or third day of their relationship, Mackenzie was saying things like, "Why aren't you touching me? I want you to be all over me. I want you to be out here for everyone in the yard to see me." The two continued to grow closer and built what Cheyenne believed was a special relationship. And after Cheyenne was released from prison, the relationship continued for 4 months. But after her release, Cheyenne started looking more into Mackenzie and what landed her in prison. And Cheyenne said she had no clue of the truth of what Mackenzie had done and said, quote, "When I was in prison, I honestly believed maybe she's not guilty because of the limited information I had." She said Mackenzie basically played it as she had been duped by the judicial system. And Cheyenne said she left prison ready to fight for Mackenzie's release and possibly be an advocate for her cause. Cheyenne said after finding out this information, she tried to ask Mackenzie questions but got very few answers. And after learning that she had been misled about the details of Mackenzie's case, Cheyenne decided to post a series of videos on her TikTok account in August 2025 talking about Mackenzie, and that effectively ended their relationship. Cheyenne said shortly after that first video went live, she began to receive threats, doxing, and texts, which made her fear for her safety. She said some of the texts were just personal details like her mother's name or her home address. She said, quote, "It was crazy because after I found out the details of her case and we stopped talking to each other and it fizzled out, people started texting me and saying crazy stuff to me." Cheyenne believed that those in prison with Mackenzie were the ones sending the texts. It was enough to scare Cheyenne into not posting any more videos, and she didn't post anything again until May 2026 after the Netflix documentary came out. So while we don't know for sure that this was directly from Mackenzie, clearly it had something to do with the videos she had posted exposing Mackenzie. And this just further proves who Mackenzie truly is.
Crazy true story about the man that's been standing on one leg for 15 years. This man is called a standing Baba, and he has vowed to not sit or lay down even to sleep. These men perform self-inflicted corporal punishment to help bring forth their spiritual enlightenment. The men have a swing-like device that holds their foot during the day and allows them to bend over and sleep at night. Standing like this for years causes swollen legs and ulcerated feet. The men describe it as very painful and permanently disabling.
This man had a secret affair with a dangerous woman, and when her cartel connections found out about their relationship, they forced him to eliminate her and her entire family. Except she wasn't dangerous, and there was no cartel, so who was he actually taking orders from? Nathaniel Huey Jr. seemed to have a pretty normal life. He worked at a manufacturing plant and ran a security business on the side. He spent a lot of time at work though, and during those long hours, he got really close to a coworker named Zoraida. Too close. Now, Nathaniel had a serious girlfriend and Zoraida was married with 2 children, so this became their little secret, until Nathaniel started getting texts from an unknown number. threatening texts. They told him that Zoraida was a dangerous woman with direct ties to a Mexican cartel and that his life was in imminent danger. These texts continued for an entire year until the tone shifted from issuing warnings to giving orders. Nathaniel was convinced that he was under constant surveillance by the cartel and that the organization was actively testing his loyalty. On September the 14th, 2023, a text appeared informing Nathaniel that Zoraida was a mole who had infiltrated their circle. The text claimed that she was actively targeting both him and the cartel, and that this type of threat needed to be eliminated immediately. So over the next 48 hours, Nathaniel began calling in sick to work to plan Zoraida's execution. In the early hours of September the 17th, an SUV pulled up to Zoraida's home. Nathaniel got out, and following instructions to make it look like a burglary, he cut 2 window screens before finding an unlocked door leading into the kitchen. Alberto, Zoraida's husband, heard the noise and came out of the bedroom. Nathaniel immediately opened fire, striking him multiple times as Alberto tried to run towards the bedrooms to protect his family. Nathaniel then moved down the hallway towards the master bedroom. He fired shots directly through the bedroom door, hitting Zoraida multiple times before entering the room. Once inside, he took the lives of Zoraida, her 2 young sons, Adriel, who was 10, and Diego, who was 7, and the family's 3 dogs. Later that night, after Alberto failed to show up to work and family members' calls went unanswered for a full day, a worried relative requested a welfare check. When officers arrived, they stepped into an absolute massacre. Within 48 hours, neighbors had offered ring camera footage of Nathaniel's SUV idling in front of the home on the morning of the incident. Investigators went to question him immediately, and at that point, they didn't have enough evidence to even arrest him yet, so detectives asked him if they could see his cell phone to verify his whereabouts. Nathaniel said absolutely not. Not without a warrant. But the second police left, he called his girlfriend, Ermelinda Palomo, and told her that they needed to leave town and now. You see, Ermelinda knew that Nathaniel had been paranoid, and she knew about the unthinkable instructions that he'd gotten from the cartel. She also knew that he'd carried out those instructions, because in that video of Nathaniel's SUV from the morning of the murders, you'll see him getting out of the passenger side of the vehicle. Ermelinda was his driver. She'd known about his affair for an entire year, right when he started getting those texts from the cartel. A statewide alert was issued naming Nathaniel as armed, dangerous, and acting completely irrational. Soon after, the vehicle tripped a digital license plate reader in Oklahoma, nearly 600 miles away from the crime scene. The couple was spotted leaving a gas station, leading police to attempt a traffic stop. But Nathaniel hit the gas, initiating a high-speed chase down the interstate. He lost control of the vehicle and slammed into a concrete barrier where the car immediately burst into flames. As officers moved in to surround the burning car, they heard 2 distinct blasts echo from inside the cabin. Officers managed to drag Ermelinda from the passenger side. She had a critical weapon-inflicted wound to the head, and she was rushed to a nearby hospital where she later succumbed to those injuries. Nathaniel was found dead in the driver's seat from a self-inflicted injury. According to the final police reports, evidence heavily suggests that Nathaniel died believing that he had successfully executed a cartel-ordered hit, never realizing that the dangerous cartel leader he feared was the woman he died next to. Follow for more. I'm Angel, and this is Red Flag Files.